We live in a time where money is everywhere, yet peace of mind is rare. Credit cards seduce us, social media pressures us. Rent, bills, student loans, they pile up. And somewhere between chasing promotions and drowning in monthly expenses, we ask ourselves a hard question. Why does wealth feel like a game rigged against us? The truth is, most of us were never taught how money actually works. Not in school, not at home, and certainly not in a way that honors our dreams and our dignity. But over 100 years ago, a series of ancient stories revealed timeless financial truths. Truths still more powerful than today's financial influencers and TikTok gurus. These stories weren't born in Wall Street or Silicon Valley, but in the dusty markets of Babylon. The richest man in Babylon isn't about quick hacks or flashy investments. It's about building wealth slowly, wisely, and with intention. It's a book about control, not just of your finances, but of your mindset, your habits, your future. If you've ever felt like money slips through your fingers, this audiobook might just change your life. Welcome to Summary Cortex, your home for powerful book summaries and life-changing ideas. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. Money slips away, unless you learn to keep it. I used to believe I had an income problem. I thought, if I just earn more, everything will fix itself. But no matter how much came in, it somehow vanished. Rent, car payments, eating out, unexpected expenses. Sound familiar? It's a trap many Americans fall into, especially young professionals. The more we earn, the more we spend. It feels like progress, but it's just an upgraded version of the same stress. The richest man in Babylon begins with a simple but brutal truth. If you don't learn how to keep your money, you'll never have any. There's a moment in the book where a young man named Bansir, a chariot builder, sits exhausted after a day's labor. Despite years of hard work, he's broke. His friend Kobe, a musician, joins him. They both complain. Why are they always working, yet always poor? That conversation hits home, because many of us, regardless of career or ambition, feel exactly that way. We're not lazy, we're not stupid, but somehow, we're not building anything lasting. And then they remember a man they both knew from childhood, Arkad, the richest man in Babylon. Once just like them, but now wealthy beyond imagination. So they go to him, and he tells them the first rule. A part of all you earn is yours to keep. It sounds too simple, but it's the foundation of wealth. If you can't hold on to even a fraction of what you earn, there's no path forward. Arkad advises saving at least 10% of every dollar, no matter how little you make, and never touching it. Let me show you how this plays out in the real world. A client of mine, let's call him Marcus, worked in New York as a freelance web designer, talented, hardworking, and earning six figures by age 30. But somehow, at the end of every year, he had nothing saved. When COVID hit, his projects dried up, and he spiraled, emotionally and financially. We started small, no budgets, no spreadsheets, just one habit: set aside 10% of every dollar he earned, automatically, before rent, before food, before anything. He used a separate savings account with no debit card attached, out of sight, out of mind. The first month, he saved $420. The second, $610. After a year, without changing his lifestyle much, he had over $7,000 saved. More than that, he felt powerful. For the first time in his adult life, he wasn't afraid to check his bank account. This is what Arkad taught in Babylon thousands of years ago. Wealth doesn't begin with income. It begins with habit. People think saving is hard because they confuse it with restriction. But saving isn't punishment. It's self-respect. It's saying, I matter too. My future matters. The irony is, once you start saving that 10%, your lifestyle barely notices the difference. You adjust. Human beings adapt quickly, but what changes, permanently, is your psychology. You stop chasing survival and start building security. In America today, 6 out of 10 people live paycheck to paycheck, even those earning over $100,000. Why? Because no one ever told them what Arkad taught. The first step to wealth is to keep a part of all you earn. It's not a sexy idea. It won't go viral on TikTok, but it works, and it changes everything. Not overnight, not in 1 month. But with consistency, that small 10% becomes the seed of every opportunity that will follow. It becomes your emergency fund, your investment capital, your freedom. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to start. Because wealth isn't about luck. It's about laws. And this is the first one. Chapter 2. Control thy expenditures. It's strange. When you start saving 10% of your income, your mind begins to rebel. You hear thoughts like, but everything I spend is essential. I can't possibly cut anything. That's exactly what Ben-Sir and Kobe told Arkad when he asked them about their expenses. They insisted they had nothing left to save after covering their needs. But Arkad laughed gently. He said, confuse not the necessary expenses with thy desires. Here's what that means in real life. Years ago, I coached a woman named Lisa. She was a nurse in Chicago, single mom, 2 kids, barely keeping up with her bills. She was convinced she had 0 room to save. So I asked her to track her spending for 30 days. Not to judge herself, just to observe. What we found shocked her. Every week, she was spending $85 on takeout dinners, an extra $120 on Amazon purchases, toys, phone gadgets, skincare deals, all small, all justified, but none necessary. That month, she cut her spending by $300 without touching rent, groceries, or her kids' needs. That $300 started going into a savings account. Within 4 months, she had over $1,000 saved, the first time in her life. Arkad's wisdom is ageless. Desires grow as income grows. If you don't limit them, they will consume everything. You don't have to live like a monk, but you do need to be intentional. Ask yourself, is this purchase making my life better long-term, or just easier short-term? Money management isn't about denial. It's about clarity. And clarity starts by distinguishing wants from true needs. Chapter 3. Make thy gold multiply. Once you start saving, the next question becomes, what do I do with this money? Arkad gives a powerful answer. Put each coin to labor so it may reproduce. Then its children shall reproduce. That's the principle of compound growth, and it's how the rich become richer. Let me tell you about Jordan, a client from Austin. He worked as a software engineer and had saved about $20,000 over 3 years, but it just sat in a savings account earning almost nothing. He told me, I'm afraid to lose it. What if I invest and it crashes? That fear is valid, but here's the problem. Saving money protects your past. Investing money protects your future. We started small. He opened a low-fee S&P 500 index fund and put $500 in, then $200 monthly, nothing fancy. But over 10 years, those contributions, and the growth, would triple his savings. Arkad explains this through the example of a brickmaker. One of Arkad's friends saves some money and gives it to a brickmaker to invest in foreign jewels. The brickmaker gets scammed. He knows bricks, not gems. Lesson: invest only where you understand, and where the investor knows their craft. Make your money work. Slowly, steadily. Don't chase hype. Don't wait for perfect. Start where you are. Grow what you have. That's how gold multiplies. Chapter 4. Guard thy treasures from loss. Earning and investing are one part of the equation. But what about protection? Arkad warned, gold flees the man who invested in businesses or purposes with which he is not familiar. Translation: if you don't understand where your money is going, you will lose it. Here's a painful example. A young man named Eric, fresh out of college, received a $15,000 inheritance. He put it all into crypto, on the advice of a friend's friend, without understanding a thing. Within months, it crashed. He lost everything. No backup, no learning, just blind trust. Arkad would have shaken his head. He said, consult the wisdom of those experienced in handling money. This doesn't mean you avoid risk completely, but it means you educate yourself before you invest. Use your mind, not just your excitement. Ask hard questions, study, be slow to hand over your hard-earned savings. Protection isn't just about avoiding loss, it's about respecting your labor. You worked for this money. Treat it like something sacred. Before every major financial decision, ask yourself, do I understand this? Is my source reliable? What happens if this goes wrong? Guard your gold, not with fear, but with wisdom. Chapter 5. Make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. We often think renting is safer. No maintenance, no long-term commitment. But Arcad challenges that. He says, own thy home. Thus your family shall have shelter and your purse shall grow. That's a big idea, especially in modern America, where home ownership feels out of reach for many. Let's talk about a real person, Rebecca, a teacher in Ohio. For years, she rented a small apartment. She assumed she'd never afford a house, but after 3 years of saving 10% of her income, she had enough for a down payment on a modest condo. Her monthly mortgage was only $80 more than her rent, but now part of that money was building equity. 4 years later, her property value increased by 22%. She now has over $30,000 in equity and a deep sense of stability. Owning isn't for everyone, but the principle is this. Turn your largest expenses into future value, whether that's a house, a business, or a skill. Don't just spend, build. If you're renting, that's okay. Start saving, learn about credit, watch the market. When the opportunity comes, you'll be ready. Arcad wasn't just talking about housing, he was teaching self-reliance, to own your space in the world. Chapter 6. Ensure a future income. This chapter is about something we often ignore, the future version of ourselves. Arcad says, provide in advance for the needs of thy growing age and the protection of thy family. It's not just about retirement, it's about responsibility. Let me tell you about Anthony, a 42-year-old father of 2 from Atlanta. He made good money in sales, but never thought much about later life. One day, a close friend had a stroke, at 48. It shook him. He realized he had no plan if something happened to him. No insurance, no will, no retirement fund. He felt ashamed, but that shame turned into action. He got a term life insurance policy, opened a Roth IRA, met with a financial advisor. By age 45, he had a clear path toward retirement and peace of mind. That's what Arcad meant. Wisdom isn't just about what you do today, it's about what you prepare for tomorrow. Build systems that work when you're not working. Think beyond your paycheck. Create safety nets for your family. We often say, live in the moment. But the truth is, part of living fully now means caring for the version of you that will exist 20 years from now. Your future deserves protection too. Chapter 7. Increase thy ability to earn. The richest people don't just save money, they increase their ability to earn it. That's what Arcad teaches next. He says, cultivate thy own powers, to study and become wiser, to become more skillful, to act as to respect thyself. In simpler terms, invest in yourself, because you are your greatest asset. Let me tell you about someone who lived this truth. A guy named Darren, a UPS truck driver in Phoenix, had hit a ceiling. Good benefits, stable job, but zero growth. He wanted more for his family, but didn't see a path forward. One day, during his lunch breaks, he started watching free YouTube tutorials on digital marketing, just 30 minutes a day. Then, nights and weekends, he practiced. In 6 months, he landed his first freelance gig helping a local restaurant with their online ads. By year 2, he was earning more from that side work than from his delivery job. He didn't have a degree, he just had hunger to learn and discipline to act. Arcad knew, it's not enough to save what you have. You must constantly expand your value in the marketplace. That doesn't always mean a career change. It might mean negotiating your salary better, learning to manage a team, building a second skill set. The world pays you based on the problems you solve. So learn, practice, stretch. Earning more is a skill, and you can grow it. Chapter 8. The 5 Laws of Gold. This is one of the most famous chapters in the book, and for good reason. Arcad shares 5 timeless laws that govern wealth, and they apply as much in today's America as they did in ancient Babylon. Let me walk you through them with a story. Melissa, a project manager in San Diego, had just received a $12,000 bonus. For the first time, she wanted to use it wisely. But with no financial background, she wasn't sure where to begin. So I gave her the 5 Laws of Gold, modernized. Law 1. Save at least 10% of all you earn. She put $100 and $200 away before touching a cent. Law 2. Invest your savings so it multiplies. She put it into a diversified ETF portfolio, aiming for long-term growth. Law 3. Invest only where you understand and trust the process. She avoided the crypto hype or her cousin's can't-miss business idea. She stuck with what she could learn and track. Law 4. Avoid investments that seem too good to be true. She was offered a guaranteed 25% return in 6 months by a coworker. She walked away. Smart move. It collapsed. Law 5. Don't trust people who lack financial wisdom to manage your money. She hired a fiduciary financial planner, someone legally obligated to act in her interest. The result? She didn't just keep her bonus, she grew it. And more importantly, she gained confidence. Arkad was clear. Gold comes easily to those who understand these laws and flees from those who ignore them. Money isn't magic. It's math, mindset, and behavior. Follow the laws, and wealth follows you. Chapter 9. The Gold Lender of Babylon. This chapter is about lending and borrowing, and the risks we often ignore when emotions get involved. Arkad tells the story of Rodin, a soldier who receives a large reward and wants to lend it to his sister's husband, who has no job and a vague business idea. Rodin seeks advice from a gold lender named Mathon. Mathon asks a wise question. Would you risk your gold with a man who has failed to manage his own life? That's a brutal but necessary truth. Let me tell you about Olivia, a 29-year-old marketing exec from Boston. She had $8,000 saved, the most she'd ever had. Her younger brother, fresh out of rehab, asked her for $5,000 to start a music studio. She loved him, wanted to believe in him, but she also knew this wasn't just about love, it was about responsibility. We walked through the risk. No business plan, no savings of his own, no history of financial discipline. She didn't say no out of cruelty, she said no out of clarity. Instead, she offered to pay for a month of career coaching and said, "When you have a plan, I'll reconsider." It was hard, but it protected her and taught her brother that money comes with accountability. Arkad explains, lend only when repayment is likely, not when guilt or pressure demands it. That doesn't mean we abandon generosity, but generosity without boundaries is not kindness, it's self-destruction. Mathon also adds this, the wise lender demands collateral even from friends. That may feel cold, but in truth, it's how relationships survive financial strain. Clear terms, clear timelines, written agreements. Don't lend emotionally, lend wisely. If you can afford to give, give, with no expectation. But if it must come back, protect it. You worked too hard to give your gold away for a promise built on hope. Chapter 10. The Walls of Babylon. There's a story in the book that doesn't mention gold at all, but it's about something even more critical, protection. Babylon was a thriving city, wealthy, advanced, and powerful. But what truly safeguarded its people were the massive walls surrounding it. They weren't built in panic. They were built in preparation. Because true wisdom isn't reactive, it's preventative. Let's look at someone who learned this the hard way. Casey, a 34-year-old graphic designer from Portland, was doing well financially. No debt, steady freelance clients, money flowing in. But she didn't have insurance, no health, no disability, no emergency fund. One bike accident changed everything, a broken collarbone, 3 months unable to work, no income, medical bills piled up. She wasn't reckless, just unprepared. When we finally spoke, she said, "I thought having savings was enough. I didn't think about protecting my income." Arkad's lesson through the walls of Babylon is this: fortify your financial life before trouble comes. That means emergency savings, 3 to 6 months of expenses, health and disability insurance, legal documents like a will or power of attorney. These aren't exciting topics, but they're essential. Just like Babylon's walls weren't built during war, your protections must be built in peace. We don't know what storms will come, but we do know that life is unpredictable, and it's not paranoid to prepare, it's responsible. Build your walls before you need them. Chapter 12. the luckiest man in Babylon. Luck. It's a concept we all think about, especially when it comes to money. Why did she land that job? Why did he get that opportunity? Arkad offers a refreshing view. Luck favors action. Men of action are favored by the goddess of good luck. Let me show you what this looks like in the real world. There's a guy I know, Greg, 27, works in IT support in Tampa. Smart, driven, but constantly felt overlooked. One day, instead of complaining about being unlucky, he started applying to roles outside his comfort zone, network administration, security, even ones where he didn't meet 100% of the qualifications. He didn't get most of them, but he got one, a cybersecurity internship. It paid less at first, but it opened doors. Today, he's in a six-figure position, managing risk protocols for a fintech company. Was that luck? Maybe, but only because he moved. He took action, took rejection, and stayed in motion. Arkad says many people wait for opportunity to show up dressed like certainty, but real opportunities are often disguised as risk, effort, or discomfort. We all know someone who's lucky, but if you look closer, their luck is built on decisions made when nothing was guaranteed. Here's the truth. Luck visits everyone, but only the prepared and proactive benefit from it. Procrastination is a thief. Waiting for the right time is just fear in disguise. If you want luck to find you, make yourself findable. That means show up, try, apply, pitch, build, risk. Don't just read about financial growth. Act. Because in money, love, and life, action is the magnet of luck. Chapter 13. A historical sketch of Babylon. At first glance, this chapter might feel like a detour, a history lesson about a long-lost city. But it holds a deeper message. Babylon wasn't wealthy because of its geography. It didn't have rivers teeming with fish or lush farmland. It was surrounded by desert. And yet, it became the richest city of the ancient world. Why? Because its people chose to build it. That's the point of this chapter, and it applies directly to you, wherever you're listening from. Let me tell you about Amy and Carl, a couple from Detroit. 10 years ago, they bought a rundown duplex in a struggling neighborhood. Friends thought they were crazy, but they had a plan. They fixed it up slowly, rented the second unit, reinvested the income, then bought another small property, then another. Today, they manage 6 units, both work part-time, and have full freedom over their time. Detroit didn't make them rich. They did, through vision, discipline, and belief that something could be built where others only saw decline. That's Babylon. We often blame the system, the economy, our upbringing. And yes, those things are real. But Babylon teaches us that environment isn't destiny. Discipline is. Arkad wasn't born rich. Babylon wasn't born great. They both became powerful through small actions repeated over time. No matter where you are, in debt, stuck in a bad job, overwhelmed by bills, you can build your own Babylon. Not overnight, but brick by brick. Because wealth isn't about where you start. It's about what you choose to build. Chapter 14. Meet the goddess of good luck. There's a strange tension in all of us, a quiet hope that someday something big will happen. That one break, one call, one chance. We call it luck. But Arkad doesn't buy into wishful thinking. He says, good luck waits to come to that man who accepts opportunity. Let me show you what that looks like in the real world. Zane was a 39-year-old chef in Houston. Talented, hardworking, but stuck working 12-hour shifts in someone else's kitchen. He'd always dreamed of owning a food truck, but kept saying, the time isn't right. Until one night, a friend called. A used truck was being sold at a steep discount. Zane hesitated. He didn't feel ready. He didn't have all the money. But instead of waiting for the perfect time, he called 3 friends, borrowed part of the down payment, and made the leap. It wasn't easy, but within a year, his Korean-Mexican fusion truck was booked at major festivals across the state. That wasn't luck. That was readiness, meeting opportunity. Arkad reminds us, opportunities come to all, but they are seized only by those who act. The people who seem lucky are often just more responsive. They're willing to move before the conditions are ideal. So ask yourself, how many chances have you already seen? and let pass. Stop waiting for certainty. Luck doesn't wait. It rewards the bold. Chapter 15. The Clay Tablets from Babylon. This chapter shifts tones. It's not a parable, but a modern story. An archaeologist translates ancient tablets written by a man named Dabasir, a man drowning in debt, trapped, ashamed, and yet determined to get free. It's the part of wealth we don't like to talk about, debt. But facing it is often the first step toward freedom. Dabasir doesn't look for a shortcut. He creates a plan, 70% of his income for living expenses, 20% to repay debts, divided among creditors, 10% to save for himself. And here's the brilliance. He pays himself first, even while in debt. That act restores his dignity and his future. Let's bring that to today. Chelsea, a 33-year-old yoga instructor in Denver, had $18,000 in credit card debt. It kept her up at night. She had stopped checking her balance entirely. She felt paralyzed. We used a modern version of Dabasir's plan, 10% into savings, auto-transferred the day she got paid, 70% for all essentials, 20% toward her debts, divided by interest rate priority. She also emailed each lender, explaining her repayment plan. 2 lowered her interest rates. 1 paused fees. In 18 months, she paid off her cards and had $3,000 in savings. Arcad's message is clear. Debt is not a death sentence, but it is a trap if ignored. The way out isn't magic, it's math and movement. Make a plan, stick to it, forgive yourself, then fight your way forward. Chapter 16. The Luckiest Man in Babylon, Part 2. We return to Sharu Nada, once a slave, now a respected merchant. His story reveals something deeper than wealth, character. He didn't inherit riches. He earned every coin, through work, trust, and relentless persistence. Here's the part that matters. Sharu wasn't just lucky. He showed up every day, even when it was humiliating, exhausting, or thankless. Let's meet someone like that. Elijah, a former convict from Baltimore, served 6 years for nonviolent offenses. When he got out, no one wanted to hire him. For 6 months, he worked at a junkyard hauling scrap. No future, no benefits, just sweat. But he showed up early, stayed late, and treated it like a stepping stone, not a sentence. The owner noticed. He helped Elijah get certified in auto mechanics. 2 years later, Elijah was running the garage. Today, he owns a mobile car repair business that services 3 counties. Sharu Nada would have been proud, because the deepest message of this chapter isn't about money, it's about earning respect through action. Arcad's wisdom teaches us, character creates opportunity, humility builds trust, discipline becomes freedom. Not everyone gets the same starting point, but those who carry themselves with purpose, no matter where they start, often go farther than anyone expects. You may not control where you begin, but you can control how you show up. Chapter 17. Work is the foundation of all wealth. In Babylon, no one was rich by accident. Every coin earned had a backstory, sweat, risk, choices. Arcad reminds us, wealth comes not from wishing, but from working with purpose. It's a concept that's almost radical today, because somewhere along the way, our culture began selling shortcuts, passive income hacks, escape the 9-to-5 fantasies, retire by 30. And while the dream is seductive, the truth still holds. Work, consistent, focused, evolving work, is what builds anything worthwhile. Let me tell you about Tim, a 41-year-old electrician from Boise. He didn't have a fancy degree or a viral brand, but he was exceptional at his trade. He kept learning, took on apprentices, managed bigger jobs. Then, one slow winter, instead of coasting, he started an online course teaching people how to become certified electricians. It took months. He made $0 at first. But 3 years later, he has over 20,000 students and makes more from his course than his full-time job. He didn't stop working. He just made his work multiply. That's what Arcad teaches. Don't worship wealth. Respect work. Because real riches are built from usefulness, not just desire. You don't need to be a genius, but you do need to show up, daily, humbly, and relentlessly. When you do, opportunities follow. because gold comes to the hands that are already moving. Chapter 18. Choose your circle wisely. There's a quiet truth in Babylon's stories, often overlooked. Your financial destiny is shaped by the people around you. Arkad doesn't preach isolation, but he does caution. Surround thyself with men whose actions are worthy of emulation. Let's break that down. Money, like energy, is contagious. If you're surrounded by overspenders, gamblers, excuse makers, it seeps into you, slowly, subtly. But if you surround yourself with builders, savers, thinkers, your mindset shifts, your bar rises. Consider Rachel, a 30-year-old wedding photographer in Atlanta. When we first met, she was talented but chronically broke. Why? Every friend she had was in debt. They joked about being financial disasters. They normalized living beyond their means. Brunches, brand names, credit cards maxed out. Rachel didn't judge them, but she did something bold. She joined a local personal finance meetup, a group of strangers who met monthly to talk goals, investing, accountability. In that room, she felt out of place, but also inspired. 2 years later, she had paid off $18,000 in debt, built a $12K emergency fund, and started a side hustle coaching other creatives. All because she changed her circle. That's Arkad's point. You don't rise alone. You rise with the standards of those around you. Ask yourself, who challenges your bad habits? Who models financial discipline? Who talks about growth instead of gossip? If the answer is no one, it's time to upgrade your circle. Because wealth isn't just strategy, it's environment. Chapter 19. Start where you are, not where you wish you were. In one of the quieter parables, Arkad is asked by a young man, "What if I've already wasted years? Is it too late to start building wealth?" Arkad's answer is gentle but firm. The best time to plant a tree was years ago. The second best time is now. Let me introduce you to Leonard, a 57-year-old postal worker from Milwaukee. For decades, he lived paycheck to paycheck. He'd heard about saving, investing, but felt like it was too late. He said, "What's the point? Retirement's only 10 years away." But one day, while reading about compound interest, something clicked. He realized that starting late is better than never starting. He began saving 15% of his income into a Roth IRA. He cut back on unnecessary spending, picked up a few weekend shifts. After 4 years, he had nearly $40,000 saved, and more importantly, a mindset shift. Leonard didn't become a millionaire, but he became free. Free from panic, free from regret. That's Arkad's message. It's never too late, but it is too dangerous to keep waiting. You may not be where you hoped you'd be by now, financially, professionally, emotionally, but don't let that stop you. Start with what you have, where you are, right now. Because wealth isn't a destination, it's a direction, and every step you take still counts. Chapter 20. Wealth is a byproduct, not the goal. We've traveled through Babylon's markets, heard the wisdom of Arkad, and seen gold change hands through lessons, not luck. But there's one final truth buried deep beneath the coins and parables. Wealth isn't the end, it's the tool. Arkad never flaunted his riches. He didn't chase status or excess. He focused on what wealth allowed him to do: care for his family, fund opportunity, give generously, and live free of fear. Let's meet someone who lives this out today. Melinda, 46, is a nurse in Kansas City. She earns well, not millions, but enough. After paying off debt and building savings, she didn't upgrade her lifestyle. She upgraded her freedom. She reduced her work schedule to 3 days a week, spends more time with her aging parents, volunteers at a women's shelter, built a scholarship fund for low-income nursing students. She says, "Money gave me back my time, and that's what matters most." That's the spirit of this final chapter. Babylon didn't rise because it chased gold. It rose because it valued discipline, service, and vision. So ask yourself, what does freedom mean to me? What kind of life do I want my money to support? Am I building wealth or just chasing numbers? The tools you've learned here are powerful, but they only matter if they point you towards something real. Because in the end, Babylon wasn't great because it was rich. It was great because it used wealth to build what mattered. If this book moved you, our next audiobook will go even deeper. What Matters Most by James Darius. Available in the end screen and description below. Thank you for listening to Summary Cortex.